Hello, everybody. Welcome to our core back office and tax 1099 integration webinar. My name is Karina. I'm one of the product managers for core back office. We also have with us Ed Pratt, the COO of tax 1099. We're going to go ahead and get started here in a second. Okay. All right, Ed, I'm going to go ahead and start.
All right, thanks, Karina. I appreciate you inviting us to be here today so we can talk a little bit about everyone's favorite topic, tax compliance and regulatory reporting. It's always fun. I'm going to spend a couple minutes letting you know who we are and why you should trust us. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to call vendor onboarding and 1099 reporting. You can hear it a couple of different ways depending on kind of where you sit in the vendor payer payee relationship area. But just to start with, Tax 1099 is a product that's created by my company Zenwork. We have been around for a number of years. Since 2010, we've been doing 1099 filings, and we were doing a number of other technology pieces prior to that. So we've been in business for a good number of years, operating our brands Tax 1099 and Compliancely, which are our largest tools. We have a number of other compliance tools that we use as well that are similar to Core. They are, back office kind of tools, software tools that our clients use to help ease their lives a little bit. So we do millions of information returns, and when we say information returns, you can think 1099s, you can think 1098s for your people who have mortgage payments. All of those are information returns, and we work everywhere along the range of businesses, from mom and pop shops who just have one contractor that they work with, up to Fortune 100 companies who have millions of employees and potentially millions of contractors as well. I think go to the next slide there, Karina. Again, just to kind of level set who we are and why you should trust us. So when we talk about compliance, we talk about tax regulations. A lot of personal information is in there. So social security numbers, names, addresses, depending on the forms. For example, we do healthcare forms for 1095s. There could be birth dates on there as well. So we maintain a ton of security, as you can imagine, having all of that PII or personal information that we have in our system. We do audits throughout the year, penetration testing. We have SOC 1, SOC 2 audits that are attestations of the quality of our security systems and the quality of our processes. And then we get vetted by our partners like Core Back Office and like a number of our other integration partners like QuickBooks Online or Xero, or Bill.com or Topalti. So we have a lot of large companies that are very interested in how we maintain our security, and they do that vetting so that they can ensure that as they're trusting us with their information, we are ensuring them and their clients that we'll make sure that we are protecting that data to every standard and quality that we can. Katrina, next slide, and we'll start talking a little bit about vendor onboarding. And so just to address the term vendor for a second, I know it's a pretty common term. You might hear in other contexts the word contractor or payee or supplier. From the IRS's perspective, it's somebody who's going to get a 1099 form, specifically a 1099 form for a 1099 NEC form for non-employee compensation, and it could be a few other types of forms that those folks get as well. For your vendor onboarding, and this is something Karina will show in Core Back Office, there's a nice smooth process for collecting the W-9 form. The W-9 is, if you think about being an employee of a company, the W-9 is kind of like an I-9 or a W-4 that you may fill out as an employee of a company. It is something that states that you or your vendor is a business entity, whether that's a sole proprietor all the way up through a C corporation. It tells what type of entity they are. It tells what the taxpayer identification number that's associated with the legal name. So that is all contained in that W-9 form. It is imperative that the person who's paying a vendor collects a W-9 form and stores that W-9 form. The W-9 can be paper, but it's easier to do this process if you do it through an online process, especially with everybody carrying around smartphones these days. The W-9 can just go right to them. They can pick it up on their phone. They can pick it up from their website if they're on their computer, and they can fill out that W-9. Once the W-9 is collected, that's kind of part of the solution, because if anything happens later in the year, when you file your 1099s and the IRS says, hey, this information doesn't match, you can go back to that W-9 and say, well, it matches what they gave me on the W-9. And that's important from the IRS's perspective. But even better than that, what you can do is validate the taxpayer identification number and the name directly against the IRS records. That is very important for preventing penalties for your business, preventing what are called B notices, B kind of standing for backup withholding, because the W-9 also attests that the person is not someone who is subject to backup withholding. So this process may seem kind of mundane, and why am I bothering with this? Well, the reason you're bothering with it is because it's important to the IRS, and because it's important to the IRS, it's important to the rest of us, because we don't want them to come down with any sort of hammer, large or small, and penalize us or fine us for not complying with their regulations. So collecting the W-9 and then conducting the vendor verification are important steps along the pathway before you start paying these vendors. And it's important that you do it before, because that backup withholding is where you can really get into trouble. If you don't collect the W-9 from a vendor and they are subject to backup withholding is currently charged at 24%. So just as an example, if you're paying somebody $1,000 and they're subject to backup withholding, and you don't withhold that $240 from the payment, you as the payer can be on the hook for that $240 of backup withholding that you did not collect because you didn't collect the W-9. Now, the vendor could lie on their W-9 form and say they're not subject to backup withholding. That's okay. You still have the W-9 form there that you collected up front before paying them, that you can show to the IRS and say, it's not my fault, the vendor lied, and the IRS will relieve you of the burden of that backup withholding payment. But if you don't have this documentation, you won't be able to show that to the IRS. So it's an important first step in your relationship with the vendor and bringing that vendor on board to your platform. Karina, if you go to the next slide, we'll talk about kind of where this goes as you go throughout the year. So in core back office, you can make that request for the W-9. You can make that request for the 10 match. You can do those things to ensure that you're doing what you're supposed to do on the front end to collect that information. That helps you later be able to report accurately to the IRS how much money you paid that individual. Because again, core back office is taking that payment information, they're retaining that information for you, holding it with that vendor record and showing that you've paid that vendor $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 or $700,000. It doesn't matter. Whatever the amount is, that amount is accumulated across the payments that you make to that vendor through core back office. What happens next is pretty cool, and Karina is going to show you this, and then I'll show you a second portion of it. But we just kind of take that information that you've been collecting throughout the year. Core back office pushes it over to Tax 1099, and then from there we can provide you with the tax compliance and regulatory reporting that's necessary to do that last mile of delivery for the IRS, for state agencies as well, and for your recipients, whether that's through a PDF that gets sent back over to core back office, or it's through the old-fashioned U.S. Postal Service mail form that we can send out for you as well. So Karina, I'm going to stop there, and I think you've got some FAQs that are going to come up next for how we work through this process.
I do. So let's get into a couple things that we see come up fairly often. So first and foremost, are there costs associated with the integration? So there are costs associated for the documents. PDF pulls are going to be 10 cents each, and the W-9 pricing is as follows, as there are discounts for bulk. Anything over 1,000, you can reach out to Tax 1099 directly for that. Another question we get often is the integration is asking for my TIN. Is this the same as my EIN? Yes. So the main difference between these two is that EIN is for company entities and TIN is for individuals. Setting up the integration, though, these two are going to be interchangeable. Should I file a 1099 NEC or MISC? So beginning with the 2020 tax year, the IRS began requiring businesses to report non-employee compensation on the new Form 1099 NEC instead of the 1099 MISC. So that's anything over 600 or more to employee or non-employees or independent contractors. And lastly, I know it seems kind of a little basic here in our knowledge of payer and recipient, but just to clarify for anyone, the payer would be the brokerage in this case, and the recipient would be the contractor that the brokerage has paid out during the year. And then for support, where you'll want to go for our team is emailing cbosupport@insightrealestate.com, or you can chat in with that bubble at the bottom of your dashboard. And this will be for any questions that you have regarding setting up the integration, syncing data over to Tax 1099, or retrieving those PDFs. We also have a detailed Tax 1099 integration article in our help center as well. We've made sure this is up to date today. And then for our Tax 1099 Zenwork friends, they have a knowledge base available as well. That does answer most of the questions you may come across, but they do have a support team. So if you have questions specific to filing or to your Tax 1099 account, they'll be able to help you out there. Let's head on into our accounts. So step number one, we're going to want to integrate the accounts first. So we'll head over to settings, integrations, and we'll go to Tax 1099. We'll add the authentication. Okay, we'll see the success, and then it'll want the payer TIN. I believe that's the correct one from here. Let me double check. Let's try it. Okay.
I was talking while I was on mute. On that payer page there in Tax 1099, you can search for the name of the payer there. And I can't remember what you said you called it, but in Tax 1099, you can search for the name in that little box in the top right. Over there, just to the right, it says search payer. A little bit further to the right.
There we go.
And it may not be there yet because we haven't done the full integration. So we may be able to pull that over here in just a moment.
No worries. Okay, so on our core back office integrations page, we do have an option to edit. So if this was entered incorrectly, you can always change it, or cancel will remove the integration entirely. When this integration is connected, we'll head on over to our money tab. At all times, you should see this Tax 1099 information section. So this is some information on Tax 1099 and form filing. This does link directly to the article on form filing in their knowledge base. So if you need a little additional assistance there, we have it for you as well. And then Tax 1099 integration will manage the integration. So this will show any agents that you have. We only have a couple agents set up in here. If the agent has a DBA entity name set up, then you'll be able to request for the business entity as well as individual if they were operating under both with their transactions during the year. So we'll want to request their W-9s. So again, for business entity, this would be the request. And then for individual would be on this first column. There's also an email also, you can always request or not on this. For this one, I am still showing not requested. Let me go to my history logs. So it looks like it's showing an error with my DBA. So that would tell me to go back to the agent's profile, make sure that it's filled out correctly. Let me go into the agent's email. They should have received the W-9 request. Here we go. Your brokerage has requested you to add your W-9 info into Core Back Office. So we will log in as this user. Settings, 1099 settings. And it'll pre-populate any information that it can from the account. And then they would have to just complete anything, address, city, et cetera, that they don't automatically have entered. Oh. I'm missing one.
It's going to want that entity type just above there too, the individual sole proprietor, or yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Ed. Okay, then it gives you the option to save a copy of it. This is the only time that the agent will see it to be able to download it. We don't store sensitive documents and information on our system. So if they want to keep it, we recommend they download or print it from here. Heading on back to our broker's account. And we now see that Jim Halpert has a completed W-9 status, so we should be able to sync his data. He now appears under Sync 1099 data because he's eligible to sync the data. And we'll go ahead and click Action to Sync. Warning, you'll only be able to sync one time. Once the record is synced, any changes will need to be made within the tax 1099 side. Ah, 2021, sorry. Put a transaction in for 2022. Let me try again. Perfect. Okay, this brings us, I believe, into the tax 1099 side. I think you might be muted, Ed.
Wow, I am muted and I can't find the unmute button. So I'm just like really struggling over here. I'm supposed to be a technology person and apparently I'm not doing a very good job of it. So thank you for showing us that on the I always still want to say BrokerSumo, Karina, but on the core back office side. Thank you for showing us that. Can you take us out to the dashboard real quick? Because I want to look and see what we see out here. And so I've got a question or a concern, I guess, because I'm not sure that that data actually came over because I'm not seeing, you know, a form showing here. But let's now go look over under people, Karina, and we'll go back to that payer screen and we'll search again for the tax 1099 payer account that should be there.
And just confirming it would take on the broker's account name here. So tax 1099.
Okay, good. That's what it should do. Okay, so it's not showing that, but that's okay. We can figure out other ways to take a look at the data here, Karina. So it's okay. we will, address that as we go forward and see what we need to do. But please go back to the dashboard, because what we'll do is just kind of start from this point. So when you go into work with your brokers or your agents, sorry, after you have completed the integration process, you'll log in and you'll land here on the Tax 1099 dashboard. And so just to continue with the flow of what Karina was doing, you're going to go under the Forms menu on the left, and further to the left in the blue bar there, Forms menu, and View, Edit, Submit. And this is covered in the article that has been put together by Karina and April for following through with this information. And then for our form there's several drop boxes that you see there in the gray box, Karina. We're going to choose 1099 NEC. It currently shows to miscellaneous. And then we're going to choose this year as the tax year. And then for my payer, select Class Act, and you can just type, you can go down there, you can just type a CL, whichever one works. This is what will happen though. Your agents will show up over here as a group in your payer record. And you can see I've got some duplicates in here. It's because I play around with my stuff all the time. It's a test account, so I don't actually file things through my account, but I've got lots of different agents, if you will, over here. And again, I'm probably going to call them vendors or contractors or whatever, but this is what you'll see. You'll see the name of the person. You'll see the amount that you've paid to that person. If they have an email address, you'll see that there, and they probably will have an email address since you'll be bringing this over from core back office. And so just right there, you can see where that email address is there. I mentioned earlier that you can pull this information, the finalized information, which we haven't completed it yet, but once you have completed your filing process, you can pull it back over to core back office by pulling the PDF over. But we also offer a mail service. So there are some, people who really just like to hold paper in their hand, right? And so you can choose the USPS mail column. We will mail those forms out within 2 business days, and it's a little shorter than that at the end of the month of January as you're kind of rushing to get into crunch time. We've got a pretty good turnaround time at the end of the month there. You can send an email to the recipient. I would suggest you not do that in this case, because the better option would be to pull it back into the portal so they can see it over there on the core back office side, because that really gets them that information in their same page where they're used to going into and logging in to see this information. I mentioned the 10 match earlier, so that is a service that we offer. The next column there just shows that 10 match, and so you can request that as you're checking out through this process, or you can request it once you have any vendors or agents over here in your Tax 1099 account. So it is available under the People menu that we'll go look at in just a minute. And then also importantly, something that I think one of the things that distinguishes us from other services that may offer 1099 filing, or even if you just are accustomed to going in and pulling the papers out and doing it from a paper standpoint, we can file to any of the states that require a filing for your 1099 NEC. If you're doing dividends or interest or 1098s or anything like that you may have, you won't be able to import those from core back office, but you can still do that processing inside of Tax 1099. So you can see here that a number of my agents don't have anything in that state filing box. And Karina, if you just hover over one of those grayed out state filing boxes, you'll see there's a grayed out O with a slash in it, right? And so that's the kind of universal indicator of can't do anything here. Well, that's true, because for this particular individual, they live in, maybe Texas or Tennessee. They live in a state that doesn't have a state income tax requirement, or they live in a state that offers what's called the Combined Federal State Filing Program, in which case you don't have to do anything. You just use us, you file it through the federal agency, through the IRS, and we will, the IRS will actually send that information right around to the state. Now, if you scroll down a little bit, Karina, you'll see Pennsylvania, and you'll see that checked off there. That's because we know that Pennsylvania requires a separate filing. We maintain an entire list of all 50 states and their filing requirements for the 1099 NEC, among other forms. And so when your agent has an address in Pennsylvania, and that address is what they filled out on their W-9 that you completed through the core back office process, we will check that automatically. We know Pennsylvania requires a filing. We want to help you do that filing for Pennsylvania. So we'll check that box for you there. And again, if they don't have a filing, they just won't work through that process. Pennsylvania does have a requirement that says we need to get a, I think it's an 8-digit payer identification number. And Pennsylvania is one of those kind of weird states. Oregon's another one that has some oddities to their filing, but they require a separate 1099 filing from other filings like W-2 filings and things like that. And so that is something that is required on the Pennsylvania form. And Karina, you can actually just click edit there on this one for one of those Pennsylvania guys.
Oh, Pennsylvania,
that's okay.
sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Stay right here. Just scroll down a little bit. So you see where California is listed here. Down at the very bottom, it's a box 5 at the bottom down there. So you can see California is listed, but what you don't see here, just to the left of that, is the state tax withheld. Just to the right of that, you see that number that's filled in there. That number, if you look at the payer 10 that's around the middle of your screen, California takes the payer 10 because they're taking the combined federal state filing program. So the state income that you see over there is being pulled in, and the FEIN is being pulled in as well. And so Pennsylvania requires that you have a separate state identifier for your 1099s from your W-2s. They require 2 different identification numbers to get that in there. And so Pennsylvania here, you would plug in your 8-digit number for your state of Pennsylvania, and it would accept that, and then the e-file can go over to the state of Pennsylvania. While we're here, Karina, I'll just say that, if you were on that previous page and you realized that something was incorrect inside of Core Back Office, maybe you had added a payment there where it didn't belong, you crossed it over, you can change the dollar amount here. So Karina, our box 1 there says $19,200. Just change that to $19,000. That's perfect. And then you can click Save and Continue, and it'll take you back over to your checkout box that will enable you to go through this process and finalize your filing. So you do have that edit option. Karina, if you click View on one of those as well, it'll pull up the PDF version. Another way that you can kind of cross-check, you can pull these down, you can look at them. This is what the finalized copy will look like as well, except it won't have the Do Not Mail to IRS watermark on it. This is just because this is a draft copy. You haven't actually submitted it yet. And so we put that watermark on there. Post filing, you will be able to get a copy of this that doesn't say do not mail to the IRS, and we'll have all the information included in there. And so you've got your all of your information that you need involved here, and you've got your California, you've got your name, everything that's in there. This is what can also be pulled back over to the Core Back Office side so that your agents will be able to see that on the Core Back Office side. Karina, if you click back over to the left tab in the section there. So another thing that I want to mention here, if you scroll back up, you'll see that those yellow boxes there under the scheduled date. It says January 10th, 2023. That is the first day that the IRS opens the FIRE system, the Filing Information Returns Electronically system. So that will allow us to send this filing over to them on January the 10th. You may choose to push that date back further. So, Karina, if you select all in the upper left-hand corner here, just below the Calculate Tax 1099 fee, and then click the black box that says Schedule Date, there you go, and then click the calendar and just put it to the 31st of January. That is the actual last e-file date. That's the e-file deadline date for 1099 NEC forms. And hover back over that yellow box again, Karina, because it will show us a little message that comes up there, and it's going to be almost impossible to read. So I'll just kind of give you the gist of what it says there. But when you schedule the date for January 31st, if today is January the 12th and you're finishing out your 1099 filing, and you have chosen for us to USPS mail, or you're just going to pull these PDFs back over to the Core Back Office side, those PDFs will be ready and the mail will go out way before January 31st. So again, if it's January the 12th, those PDFs will be ready, within 5 minutes or so. The mail will go out within 24 to 48 business hours. The importance of this, though, the importance of the schedule date is that I can send my forms to my agent on January the 12th. or if I'm mailing them, it goes out January the 13th or 14th. They get it in hand, they open it up, they take a look at it, they can make sure everything is right, and then they can contact me if something is not right. And that's where the edit button comes back into play. And we're not going to go back and edit it again, but you would have the same opportunity up through the end of the day on January the 30th. And when I say end of the day, I mean Eastern time on January the 30th, to go back through and make some modifications to that. And Karina, because you did that, you went over there to the edit side, you'll notice that schedule date resets. We refresh it every time you come back over here. So you'll just need to set that schedule date right before you're finally sending your forms out. So Karina, go ahead and change that schedule date one more time for us. And we're not going to actually submit these. We're just going to show the next step of the process where you go to do the submission. And so I'm not going to choose mail or anything because I'm going to pull them back over. I'll go ahead and select all, keep the select all on there. That's good. And then I'm not going to choose USPS mail or email or tin match. We'll leave everything else as it is and scroll down to the bottom. And there's going to be a button at the bottom that says submit for this payer. Don't worry about the submit for multiple payers. That's more for our accounting clients who do 1,000 of these at a time. But just click that button that says submit for this payer. You're going to get a couple of messages. One message is going to say, in this instance, you haven't chosen postal mail or email to send the recipient copies. Well, I'm planning on pulling them back over to BrokerSumo through my 1099 pool. So that's perfectly okay. They're going to get a copy of the form. But it's also a reminder that if you did want to send the mail, you can go back and do that here. I'm going to check the box here that says I have reviewed and verified the data for the submission. It's just kind of a check off for us to know that you did go through and review everything. When I click OK, I'm going to get one more pop-up that's going to come here, Karina, and it's because I have all these duplicates in here. And so you can get this situation if you've pushed your data over a couple of different times from core back office, or if you accidentally came in, maybe you pulled an agent over from core back office, and then you came in and created another form for them for some reason. You could have that. This, again, it's just kind of a check for you to say, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to send 40. I've only got 20 of these that I want to send. And so you could stop and do the process. I want you to click OK here though, Karina, because since we're not actually going to file these, we're just doing this for demonstration purposes. I just want to show what happens here. And so what comes next is you'll see the filing fee. And over there on the right side, it'll tell you the form count. It'll tell you how much the e-filing is. If you're doing mail, it'll tell you how much that is. Tell you how much the state filing fee is based on all that. So I have a prepaid balance. And so if we were checking out here, we could do that. If you don't have a prepaid balance, it'll ask you for your credit card information. Your billing address will always be asked for because there will be sales tax involved, as you're probably accustomed to. But this would be the final step of the process to go through and check out these forms. And then you won't click this button, Karina, but down at the bottom it says pay and submit to e-file. That's the final step of the process. And when I click that button, that's when it creates my my e-file. I told it to wait and not send it until January the 31st. So it won't send that until January the 31st. If I'm mailing copies, it'll go ahead and mail those. And it'll put the copies over available for me to do other things with. So Karina, at this point, this is where they could go back over to core back office. They could push the filing over. You don't have to click cancel because it'll cancel it where we show you. But if you go to forms menu now, and we're going to go to a slightly different place here and go to manage forms is where I want to go on this one. And so because this is a test account, I don't have any actual forms that you can see here, but Karina, if you click that payer drop box, yeah, there you go, and click class act. And then if you click just to the right of that in the tax year, you can have your multiple options here. So if you've used this in the past, you'd have 2021, 2020, and possibly 2022 here. This is where if somebody asks me for a copy later, or if I just need to get copies for myself, I can pull all the PDFs down here to store in my folders. I can keep track of all that information. I can go in here and make edits to those forms up till January the 31st. So I've got lots of ways that I can work inside the software for doing the particular things that I might need to do in regards to my filing. Generally speaking, for our clients who are they're real estate brokers, and so they're not really dealing with 1099s a whole lot, especially because they've got core back office running their back office programs. You do this once, you check out, you pay, you're done. You pull them back over onto Core Back Office as you need to, maybe for those recipients to be able to see that form. You've got the W-9 that you've confirmed is over there in the Core Back Office. If you ever need to find that W-9 or you ever need to change your vendor's information, you'll do that under the People menu. So let's go there next, Karina, under People and Manage Recipient. And it'll give me the list of my payers. So I know April had answered a question earlier about, can I have multiple payers and can I integrate multiple payers? This is where they will all appear. So up at the top of this area here, Karina, there's a box that says 1095 name change test for under select payer in the top gray area. Yeah, right there. And so if I click that, this is all my groups. So just type in class there, Karina, and it will show you class act and class co. When we pick class act, this will be all of my agents that exist under this class act group here. And so I've got everybody listed here. You can see over on the right-hand side, if they've completed that W-9, yep, you can search for Jim there. There you go. And so you see his W-9 is completed. And so when we were doing that that alignment, Karina, you might have used the 10 for class act when you put that information in. And so it's
Seems that way.
over here. Yep, I think that's what happened. So, but if you click on that button that says W-9 completed on January 1st, I'm sorry, December 1st. Oh, well, that didn't work very well. But what it'll usually do is just bring up that completed W-9. And Karina, that may be because we did it through the API process. And so it's still kind of processing on the back end. We did see it under the agent record. And so it'll be the same view that I would have here. I get to see what Jim's name, address, business type, the signature on Jim's record, all of that is stored here on the Tax 1099 side. And here's the other place where I can request that 10 match. So the button there just to the left of W-9 completed, it says request 10 match. I can make a request for that. And depending on the day, we can get these back in 30 minutes. We can get these back in 24 hours. It just kind of depends on the flow of the IRS tool as we're working with getting that data back. And if they ever shut down, it could be a little bit longer than that, of course. We're kind of at the mercy of the IRS for doing that, but oftentimes we're getting them back in 30 to 60 minutes these days. All right, so I want to show one last thing, Karina, over on the left under forms again. I just want to have you click on new form. Oh, sorry, just the one above that. Yeah, yep. New form.
Sorry.
So I mentioned earlier that we're bringing the 1099 NEC data over from Core Back Office, but we have a number of other forms that may be useful to you. Dividend forms, interest forms. If you a little bit further down in the green there, you've got the 1098 forms. So if you hold any mortgages yourself and people are paying you, they're paying interest to you, that form 1098 can be something that you e-file with the IRS and send to them through the Tax 1099 platform. It won't come over from Core Back Office, but you can create those recipients very easily, either through an import in Tax 1099 using an Excel spreadsheet, or just manually typing that information in. Either one works just fine. What I want to show here for the moment, though, Karina, is click on the green button for 1099 NEC. It's the second one from the left on the top row there. Because what can happen is you do everything that you're supposed to do right on time, because of course you do. You're on top of the game, right? And you get your forms filed, January 15th. You schedule them for January 31st. They hit the hands of your agents on January 16th. They're getting everything that they need. But because they're slack, they don't come out and actually open the form. They get their mail and they just kind of stack it for their accountant to look at, and they file an automatic extension for their 1040, and so they don't even look at that form until September or October or whatever. So when they look at that form later on in the year and they say, hey, wait a minute, you said $19,000. That's not right. You paid me $17,000. Remember, there's that $2,000 discrepancy we had, blah, 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 whatever the story is, right? There's oftentimes a good reason for doing a corrected form. And here's where you can do that. So Karina, under the existing payers there, yep, right there, just type in class again. We're going to keep going with the same folks here, and then you can find Jim down in the existing recipients just below there. And so this is what builds out, as you use the system, we build out all of this information, and click on the edit button just above where you are there. That's how you edit Jim's recipient information. So it's California, I believe. Yeah, there you go. And then update. And then that will update that information and show it there. So if we're ever missing anything like that, you can easily see what's going wrong with that data here in the page. Now go back up to the top screen and just check the box that says corrected, and it's going to pop up a little message that says, because this is a corrected form, you're doing really one of two things usually. You're either saying, oh, I wasn't supposed to send this one to this person at all, and you're zeroing it out. That's called a void form. And so you just put 0 in the previous box. Or in our situation, we're adjusting the amount. It was 19,000, it's supposed to be 17,000. And it can go up or down, right? It just depends on what the right thing is. So click OK, and in box 1 there, just put $17,000 for Jim. He's in California, so we've got that $17,000 state income down there. All's good. If I click Save and Continue for this one form, and I could do more, I could just manually add more forms using one of those other buttons down there. But when I click that Save and Continue, it just drops me back out here for Jim. And so these are corrected forms. So even though it's Class Act, you're not seeing all those 40 forms that we had before, because those were regular forms. Corrected forms get filed separately to the IRS. It's just a back-end thing that we take care of automatically. But for you, you would just see them in a separate grouping here on my checkout page, so that I can go through those same processes and do my work to finish out and send this corrected form out to Jim. All right, so that's pretty much it for me, Karina. If you go back to the dashboard real quick, it'd just be the kind of the last thing that I'll mention is that especially if you only have one payer or 5 payers, you're only going to have a few rows of information here, and so you'll see those filings that you've done here, and we'll track them for you. You log into the dashboard, it'll show you the IRS accepted status. It'll show you what if they've not been submitted, or if they've been submitted and they're just waiting on the IRS. So all that's right here in the front of the dashboard. All right, thanks, Karina. I'm going to stop talking now, and you can take us back and show us some other stuff.
You did good. Thanks, Ed. So one last thing in our system that I want to show you guys on the integration is then once you have those forms, there's an option to get the forms. So you have 2 options here. You can request a single PDF, or you could request multiple PDFs. If you're doing a single PDF, you will need the form ID from Tax 1099 site, which form it is, either MISC or NEC, and then is it submitted or not submitted to the IRS yet? So at the point of submitting this request, is it submitted to the IRS? Those are all requirements. And then requesting multiple PDFs, you wouldn't need the ID number, you would need the tax year and the form type. And again, if it's submitted or not, and that will pull for all the agents that you have this form for on Tax 1099 side. If the request is large and will take time, there will be a pop-up button box that will appear giving you the job ID number for this request. That will also be sent to the broker's email address. So you have it in both places, the pop-up here where you can take note of, and in the broker's email address for reference as well. Then you will get a second email from Tax 1099 saying, hey, the job is complete. You'll be able to come back into here and just enter the job ID number and submit, and then those documents will auto download to your device without any of these other fields. So that will be the only field you need. And then there will be, again, history logs, everything that's happening here. So when you request the PDFs, when you request W-9s, so when there's successfully go through, if there's any errors, will show in your Tax 1099 logs. I think that brings us up to our questions. So we'll open it up to Q&A. I thank you, April. It looks like you've been handling everything in the chat for questions. Yeah, we'll take a look now and open it up.
Hey, Karina. One quick question. So someone asked if they can pull information from multiple payers through the integration. So on Tax 1099, you can have multiple payers, but can you sync multiple payers using the integration?
Not at this time, but that is a future update. So we'll be able to make an update to do multiple payers. As of right now, it was just built to do that one payer TIN under settings integrations.
Another question was, if an agent fills out their W-9 and does not download it, how can they check to see if they provided the correct one down the line? You can go to Tax 1099 and go to that recipient or agent record, and you can view and download their W-9 and send it to them. Karina, is there a way for the agents to view their W-9 in BrokerSumo?
I don't believe so at this time. I believe the broker would need to get it to get another copy of it.
Okay, so yeah, you can do that through Tax 1099.
For everyone, yes, we will be sending this recording out to all registered attendees, all other admins that did not register for our webinar today, as well as adding it to our help center. So everyone should have access to it after today. Our company doesn't have a customer service number. We do have an email and the chat box. So you'll see right here in the bottom right of your chat box, you have directly to our support team. And then we also have CBO support at insiderealestate.com. I'll pull our support information back up. And then for Tax 1099s and work support, they have their knowledge base, which does answer most questions you may need, as well as their email support at tax1099.com.
And Karina, we also have a similar, down on the bottom right chat button down there as well. So usually what can happen is if you do need like live assistance, obviously the chat is live. There's a bot first, but then there's a live chat. But if you need like a meeting or something, they can send you a Zoom link, and they'll be able to send you getting that information. Yeah, and if you do just get an info form, so that is usually when we're not online. So that will come up on the on that chat box if we're not available, someone's not actually there for you. We are usually there 8 to 6 Central Time is our schedule, and then for the last couple of weeks of January, we usually go 8 to 8 and still Central Time.
And for our team, we are 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time for our support.
Regarding the pricing change question there, so the price is dependent on the number of forms that you file. So you will see kind of the variance there. There's tiers that are involved, and that's whether you have one payer or 5 payers, it accumulates over the number of forms that you file, regardless of how many times you go through the submission process.
Another question is, in the agent profile on the left side, there is a field labeled Tax 1099 name, and on the right, a field for their DBA entity name, number, date. Once synced, will that auto-populate?
Sorry, for which date?
I think the question is asking, will all of the information sync or auto-populate once synced?
So it's whatever the agent has set up. So in this example, when I originally did it, this agent didn't have an address or anything like that set up in their agent profile, so it didn't sync over. If it was in his agent profile, it would have synced over. The money tab is on all broker accounts and super admin accounts. It's on other staff user accounts. If there's no restrictions, there is an option that brokers can say, I only want my staff user to have access to reporting or to transactions, where in those cases, the money tab would not appear. So if you don't see it, definitely talk to your broker to make sure that the permissions are accurate for your account.
And just to go back to the pricing, I think I understand better now what you're looking for. So if you decide to upload the W-9 If it's your own W-9, obviously tax 1099 is not going to charge anything for that. But if you're doing the W-9, we charge you for that as you go through. When it pulls back over to BrokerSumo, there's not a separate charge for that. It all is contained in that one price.
And a clarification question from earlier. So will the 1099, if they sync it or pull it back to BrokerSumo, will it be in the agent's account, or do they need to send it or deliver it to the agent some other way?
They would need to deliver it to an agent some other way. We do not store sensitive documents like W-9s and 1099s on our system.
For Jessica's question about pulling the data back to BrokerSumo, and April and Karina are going to probably know better than I will. Yes, we can email them, we can mail them, but if you file them within Tax 1099 and you've synced Tax 1099 and Core Back Office BrokerSumo together, then you can pull those 1099s back over using that Get PDFs option under the BrokerSumo section. So it hinges on that payer 10 or EIN. As long as that's the same in both of the systems and it's been synced together, then you can pull them back over. Even if you didn't sync the 1099 data over from BrokerSumo, you can still go back the other direction after they're submitted.
Thanks for clarifying.
And yes, John. So again, assuming that your payer 10 is the same, we get this all the time with our integrations, and we do a number of them. Once you have agent A under your broker in Tax 1099, whether you created it manually or imported it, the next year that if you sync it over, it will stay with agent A as long as his taxpayer identification number is the same. But if they change their address, then we'll update the address based on that information, and then it will just continue on in your same Tax 1099 profile and your same Tax 1099 payer. It'll continue to update those records.
Jade, for that, go ahead and send a chat into support. They'll be able to double check that for you. Yes, so Jessica, for that, you'll be able to, for requesting W-9s, you'll have all your agents listed here. Again, this test account only had a couple agents in it. You'll be able to email all to send all of that to them to complete W-9s. And then you'll just see here a green check once they do complete it. And then for syncing the 1099 data, once they've completed W-9, so again, once they've got a successful green check on the first tab, they'll show up here on this list. That's why we see Jim here and not Pam. Pam did not complete her W-9 yet. And then you can sync the data. So if you have all your agents here that completed W-9s and you want to just click sync all instead of going through each one, then it'll send all that data over to Tax 1099. April, did we miss any questions?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Oh, well, hang on. Looks like someone still has one. Let me see. Oh, for John's question on will it sync properly with our existing Tax 1099 agent list? That was yes, as long as the TINs are the same on either side or on both sides. So as long as that ID number is the same, that's how our integration is looking for those agents.
On the tax 1099 coupon field, there, it's a good question. The field is there with their, we don't do a whole lot of coupons. We sometimes have one that's out on, Coupon or Retail Me Not, whatever it is, those sites that are out there. Our marketing team will occasionally send out something for doing, especially if you're doing like an early filing January 2nd or 3rd or something like that. They might do that to try to pull some volume back away from the end of the month, but we don't typically do those coupons.
Okay, well, if that covers our Q&A, huge thank you to Ed and April for joining us today and running this webinar. We very much appreciate all the information you've given us. Again, to everyone else, thank you for joining us, and I will make sure that this webinar recording goes out to everyone here, any admins that couldn't make it, and we will be putting it up on our help center as well. All right. Hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.